This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. First up today, Russ Capper at the 2013 NAPE conference, sitting down with Eli Gruber, President and CEO of the Georgia-based Ecologix Environmental Systems, as they discuss that company's approach for cleaning water. Next up, I sit down with Clare Sullivan Jackson, founder and CEO of the Sullivan Group, the official event service provider for the Offshore Technology Conference. All that right after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show, reporting in from the 2013 NAPE conference. And my guest now is Eli Gruber, the CEO of Ecologix Environmental Systems. Eli, welcome to the Energy Makers Show.
Thank you, Russ. Appreciate being here.
You bet. So here we are in the middle of this boom, this shale play, gas and oil. And you have a company, an environmental company outside the energy space, and yet you're playing a key role. Must be nice, eh?
Yeah. Well, we started essentially to cleaning industrial wastewater treatment. In industrial wastewater, we deal with food industry, we deal with automotive industry, we deal with metal industry, and so on. So we borrowed some good ideas that we have from the food industry into the oil industry.
Okay, so how old is the company?
11 years old.
Okay. How long have you been now in the energy industry?
Well, we've been working on this product for the past 4 years or so, and took our time to perfect what we have. So we're going through now a fourth generation of improvement to the product that we're going to now introduce to the oil industry.
How did the oil industry get on your radar? Did they come knocking on your door, or were you paying attention and you went, wait, man, there's some potential. These guys have a problem.
Well, I have a friend that applied an evaporator technology that he used in the industrial world to the oil industry. And I learned now for the first time about the business of fracking. And looking closer at what has been done, I came to the conclusion that nobody's doing it the right way, and we need to apply a technology that we're familiar with. So we repackaged the technology to apply itself to the oil industry.
Okay, now that's exactly how you got on my radar. I saw that you speaking on the topic of smarter water management. What is smarter water management? What is the right way?
Well, the right way is, first of all, to use a toolbox, not a sledgehammer, to resolve the problem. There's a lot of companies that attempted to introduce products black box solutions that really lead to nowhere. We take an approach of having multiple steps that you have to do to clean the water. We're using a technology called dissolved air flotation. First, we use chemistry to precipitate the pollutants from the water, and then we use millions of little teeny air bubbles to float that pollutants to the surface of the water, from which we then scrape them away. And we end up with water that at times is 170 times cleaner than the alternative methodology that has been used thus far in the industry.
All frack water is not alike. So do you find yourself having to use different tools on different water?
Absolutely. The tools themselves are similar. We're not changing the hardware, but we're changing, so to speak, the software, which is the chemistry that we're using. And we go through a jar test in a laboratory, and we can do it in the field as well. And we can apply just the appropriate amount and the right type of chemistry to get the desired effect.
What's the status of the company today? Are you doing this today?
Yes. So we went through a first generation of product. It was about 100 gallon per minute. The second generation was 400 gallon per minute. Now we have our third generation, which is a 900 gallon per minute, or equivalent of 31,000 barrels a day, which is more than anybody else in this industry. We just finished the building of two platforms. Each of them has 3 different trailers. And we're sending the first one to Canada, and we are in negotiation right now with some companies in the U.S. I think that the second one will go to West Texas.
Okay, so when you use the term trailer, this means you're actually cleaning the water at the well site.
We can clean the water at the well site, but we can also treat it remotely. So it depends on the circumstance. And the way that we're structuring ourselves is to have a joint venture with a company that is already either hauling water away or piping water away or having some relationship with the oil industry, so they can bring both capital and clients to us. And we will continue to operate our own equipment to treat the water.
Now, I'm under the impression that there are some fracking jobs where the developer will not tell you what's in the water, and they kind of protect it because of intellectual property per se. So, I mean, do you have to have them tell you exactly what's in the water for you to be able to clean it, or can you ascertain what's in there?
Well, we can ascertain, but they are more cooperative. They can tell you what's in the water, and even if they don't tell you what's in the water, we take it to a laboratory and we, like a sample of 1 gallon or 5 gallons, and we can basically come up with a solution in a laboratory. And anything that we can do in a laboratory, we can essentially perform in the field.
Well, Eli, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate the time.
You bet. And that wraps up our discussion with Eli Gruber, the CEO of Ecologix Environmental Systems, and we'll be back with more after this.
At BKD, we understand the constantly shifting nature of the energy industry. As a national CPA and advisory firm, we serve energy clients from the beginning to the end of the cycle. Our experienced energy advisors serve approximately 300 energy companies in exploration, midstream, downstream, oilfield services, and power production. Plus, we're the largest North American member of the Praxity Global Alliance, which means we can help you wherever you operate. Contact a BKD advisor or visit us online to learn more.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome to the Energy Makers Show. My guest now, Clare Sullivan Jackson, President and CEO of the Sullivan Group, but also official event service provider for the Offshore Technology Conference. Clare, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here, Paul.
Tell us about the Sullivan Group.
The Sullivan Group, well, for 23 years now,
Incredible.
We have been producing some of the most outrageous corporate meetings and events in Houston. So outrageous by meaning just very unique, strategic, brand-driven events for primarily large corporations. We have produced spectacles on the floor of Minute Maid Park and in Minute Maid Stadium for 15,000 people. We've produced international product launches where we've been all over the world for an oilfield services technology company. So that's why I love my job. I mean, it is never the same twice. I mean, we never have we ever done the same program twice.
Well, tell us what should we expect at this big conference?
Well, OTC grows every year, and they expect another stellar year. And last year we pushed almost 80,000 attendees. So it's a big show. It's Houston's largest citywide convention. We're very proud to have it in Houston, and we're extremely proud to be the official event services provider. It's a big week for us.
Well, and you've done it year after year.
It's been 8 or 9 years now.
Tell me exactly, what do you do as the event service provider?
Any exhibitors that are hosting hospitality events for prospects and customers in the stadium or anywhere on the grounds call us to get what they need in the way of branding, entertainment, any kind of event services. So we will be producing hospitality suites, press conferences, small, intimate luncheons. We will be producing large customer events for several thousand people. We also produce the show opening dinner, the OTC annual dinner, which will actually be a very, very formal dinner on the floor of the stadium, and that actually kicks the show off on Sunday, and that in itself is a huge production, but it is the signature event of the show.
So for all of these thousands of attendees, how in the world can you as an attendee truly differentiate yourself?
That's what we do. We work with the exhibitors, and we coach them on how to differentiate themselves and their brand and their event and attract the prospects and the customers that they're looking for. And these events range from 4-day hospitality suites and press conferences that are just a flow with small amounts of people to, large spectacles with thousands of people. So it's just a variety of different activities, lunches, dinners, cocktail receptions. It just depends on the objective of the client and who it is they're trying to target, and that's what we work with them on.
If I'm an exhibitor wanting to really appeal to customers and blow it out at this year's OTC, what should I be doing?
First and foremost, start early. Get that save the date out and have a really, really good hook. Have a good theme established. Don't give it all away, but give them a reason to come. My other big piece of advice is to start early. You want to grab those folks before they head on to anything else. So my advice is you start like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you don't want to compete with the big boys for an evening event, I strongly recommend luncheon programs. Especially if you have a senior leadership team member or the CEO present, that gives that man or woman a platform to actually speak versus a cocktail format. So lunch is a very popular invitation. If you're invited to a nice lunch, most likely you're going to pack the house because it's tough to get a bite to eat at the show.
As you look at the booth styles or different ways that people present themselves, so are there some that you see more effective than others?
Well, it's all about media these days. It's all about the messaging through multimedia. So it is small amounts of information over and over again in a variety of different formats. So when you see the larger presentations, that's what you're going to see. And a lot of them have gimmicks to get you in, but really the money is spent in the media development and videos and that kind of thing. And those are great because you can repurpose it and it becomes an investment that lives well beyond the show itself.
What is it that makes the Offshore Technology Conference a continued success? What is that special sauce, do you think?
Well, I think it's the way the Society of Petroleum Engineers has built the show, the way they market it. They just do an incredible job of producing it. So the experience of the attendees and the experience of the exhibitors is top-notch. I mean, the planning that goes into this show would blow your mind. When we sit at these contractor meetings, there are 50 people sitting around a table looking at all of the different aspects from power to rigging and the way Freeman gets in to load in the show. I mean, we're there for a week. They're there for 3 weeks. So we put a team on the ground in the stadium, but the complexity of the show is just enormous. It's a thrill to be part of it. It really is.
As you reflect back over the history of the Sullivan Group, what are some of the events that you have most pride in being able to pull off, or even some of the most challenging?
I think the rig event was really quite an experience because it was one of those things. It's a great idea. Now I've got to figure this out. So we were in the Port of New Orleans area there, and I actually had to go find the guy that would give us the rig. So I mean, I really was starting from scratch, and that was early in my career, and I didn't have the contacts that I do now. Now I could just pick up the phone and call the CEO of whatever and get myself a rig. But then I underestimated what we would have to do to get that rig ready for a party. So the cleanup and the paint job and the life preservers for every single guest, and so working with the Coast Guard was very interesting.
I bet.
So that was a big learning, but it was a huge result. I mean, we invited everybody down to the dock and slowly brought the rig down. It was up about 3 stories and just turned that set on like a movie set. They went on. went up 3 stories for about an hour and then brought them back down. So those people, how many years later, are still talking about that?
Absolutely.
That's what we love to do.
Well, it's your reputation that you can do it all, and you continue to deliver. Thank you so much for coming by today.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me.
And that wraps this episode of The Energy Makers, heard on the radio nationwide, seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com. I'm Paul Dickerson, and we'll see you next week.